I've never played a Resident Evil game before. Listen, it's not like I never found the series interesting, but it was always something I interacted with from afar. I knew about the series, I knew about Spencer Mansion and Raccoon City, I watched Hamster Alliance's co-op Let's Play of Resident Evil 5 back when the Magna Carta was being written, and I watched a friend of mine play through Resi 7 and Village to give them moral support, so I am, on some level, familiar with the series. I've just never played them. In large part because I am a little baby who is easily startled, I'm not a fan of backtracking, and I hate inventory management. So you can imagine how exhausted the first half of this game made me. I've been told that preferring the second half when you return to the mansion and delve into the labs is a minority opinion, which is a little baffling to me, but perhaps it just irritated me that much. But when I didn't feel irritated, I did in fact enjoy my time with the game. Spencer Mansion is very spooky and intricate, it feels like an entity in and of itself, and I'm glad I pushed through that first half to experience it when mini killer crocs are trying to eat my face. So let's get into it, shall we? If you enjoy this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and drop a comment telling me your experience with the game. Before we get into this, I am aware that thanks to a game released on the Wii of all platforms 5 years after the 2002 version of this game came out, some events were retconned, and I don't care enough to compensate for that because that's not what was presented in the game I just played, so we're gonna have to be cool with that. Okay? Okay. Our journey begins July 1998 in Raccoon Forest outside Raccoon City, a metropolis that is home to, owned by, and employs 30% of the population, the Umbrella Corporation.
Morgan, where is Raccoon City?
The United States.
But like, where?
The Midwest.
But which state?
Long story short, looking online did not provide any answers beyond vaguely Midwestern. Anyways, after a spate of strange murders and families being attacked and eaten by groups of hostile people, Bravo team was sent to investigate the situation. We don't play as them because they croaked, but our actual gang, Alpha Team, finds the wreckage of Bravo's helicopter, and the remains of at least one member. While checking the area, Alpha Team is attacked by some very unwell-looking Doberman puppies and are forced to flee through the woods to a mysterious mansion. They could have run back to the helicopter they arrived in, but the pilot, Brad, flies off without them because he's scared of the dogs. I hope you crash, you absolute weasel. On the way to the mansion, the remaining members of Alpha Team, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, and Captain Albert Wesker, attempt to keep the dogs at bay, but there are just too many of them. Now, you can choose to play as Chris or Jill, and if you do so, between the bit where they're all running together with the mansion in sight and getting through the front door, the one you aren't playing as straight up disappears.
There are only 3 STARS members left now. Captain Wesker, Barry, and myself. We don't know where Chris is.
Somehow,
Palpatine returned.
he just didn't reach the door. We will eventually find Chris again, and it turns out he got captured and spent the entire game sitting in a cell at the bottommost level of this nightmare house. How? Great question, I'd love to tell you. Anyway, if you play as Chris, Barry fails to reach the door and is never seen again, presumably rendered puppy chow, and instead you run into an otherwise unseen character called Rebecca Chambers, the only member of Bravo Team who survives this entire mess. She is only part of the story if you play as Chris, which is a very odd decision to me when she seems to be pretty relevant to the plot as a member of the team we're looking for. Regardless, Jill, Wesker, and Barry take stock of their surroundings in the mansion foyer, with Jill and Barry splitting off to investigate a gunshot. Maybe it's Chris! It's just a dining room, with some blood by the fireplace that Barry insists on staying to examine. Whilst here, I grab an emblem off the wall that I won't need until hours later, but whatever. Maybe Chris is through this door. Oh. My first encounter goes poorly because I had the foolish idea that I should save ammunition, and it takes the zombie getting several bites in for me to stop pussyfooting around and just shoot the thing. My nightmare has begun. Returning to Barry, we apparently bring the zombie we just killed with us because when it's shot dead, Jill explains that she found Kenneth being killed by it. Sure. Trying to report it to Wesker, however, is fruitless as the blonde bastard has vacated the premises. Barry then suggests splitting up to search the first floor, after we've already lost 2 of the 4 we had before reaching this godforsaken house. Anyway, it doesn't take long for Jill to be completely on her own, contending with a menagerie of doors locked by various different keys along with elaborate mechanisms and puzzles that require specific items to solve, the likes of which you would expect to find in a point-and-click adventure game. It's not that I hate this kind of gameplay. I can absolutely enjoy it, and at times I did, but because I was trying to explore as much as possible out of sheer curiosity, I ran into doors I didn't need to go through and items I didn't need just yet. Often. I also had a love-hate relationship with the fixed camera angles. Most of the time I think they worked as intended, giving this unsettling fly-on-the-wall feeling as if something in the room is watching Jill run by, especially when it's angled to be behind a fence or under furniture. They're also often placed in a way that highlights a point of interest or an item the player needs, which is neat. My main issue is the way it works with movement, because moving in any direction after the camera changes to a new angle means your axis of movement adjusts to that new angle. I.e., you were moving in a straight line from the old angle, if you hit the same movement key in the new angle because you're adjusting your direction, you will suddenly turn left. Which can be extremely frustrating if you're trying to run away from an enemy. Maneuvering around bosses is especially a nightmare. I did, however, eventually get used to it. And this is the part of the video where I struggle to describe my hours of wandering back and forth in an exciting way because, to tell the truth, I was so goddamn bored and irritated for the first half of this game. The parts that helped me keep going were whenever we ran into Barry, because that provided some engagement with the story rather than Jill's unbearable night at Spencer Mansion. You might have guessed at this point that Spencer Mansion is not normal. Its plethora of elaborate mechanisms and variety of door locks make it seem more like someone turned a puzzle box into a house than somewhere people actually live. Like, whomst exactly has a tomb in their back garden locked by a mechanism where you need to place a jade arrow in a stone sculpture containing a metal sarcophagus suspended by chains that bleed when you release those chains, and you release those chains by finding 4 different death masks to mount on creepy stone statues inside. No one normal, certainly. All this to lock away one crimson-haired zombie with a book called The Book of Curses explaining that evil will awaken if you find all the masks. Is Umbrella Corporation also a theater group? Crimson-head zombies are what happens if you leave zombies where they fall without burning the body. They'll eventually turn into faster-moving, more aggressive variants that can and will ambush you the next time you pass through a door and remember, oh yeah, I left a body right here. Thankfully, I was mostly diligent about leaving a trail of very crispy walkers in my wake, so I rarely had to deal with those. My first actual encounter with a Crimson Head ended up being very safe, as it was in the gallery hallway and trapped behind the dresser. My second encounter wasn't quite so gentle.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
You know, I never figured out what the hell this was meant to be used for until I looked it up just now. What the fuck? Do you mean it's used to make a map of the second floor? Yes, I lit the fireplace. Yes, I noticed it made the plaque above it grow red. Who would think I'm going to press a wood board against this to make a map? Though that isn't as egregious as deciding to stop everything and play Moonlight Sonata on the piano, only for it to just so happen to open a secret room. Then again, why was it made like this? I know there was an architect told by Spencer to build all the puzzles and mechanisms, but like, the metal relief above the fireplace? Why? Did Spencer just like how this looked, or did he intend for someone to figure out, oh, I can make a map from this? Whatever. I first run into Barry again when I find the shotgun without the broken shotgun in my inventory, so Jill is almost turned into a Jill sandwich by the trap, which is not what Barry says in the remake, not exactly.
Barry!
That was a close one. A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Really? Thanks. But Barry, didn't you say you were going back to the dining room to find other clues? I'm glad and all, but why are you here?
I just had something I wanted to check.
Yeah, like, but what were those things, dude? We're on the job here, our team is missing, there are monsters. What you up to, bud? Jill is briefly accosted by a very soggy bathroom zombie and understandably pukes in the nearby toilet before we're reintroduced to the zombie puppers crashing in through the windows. Maybe they just want to play fetch. We meet Barry again in the foyer and agree we need to secure an escape route, splitting off again to find a backdoor exit of some kind. Exploring the dormitories will confirm what you might have already guessed. Most of the zombies here are former staff, people who worked at the mansion, on the grounds, or even in the Umbrella laboratory beneath it all. This is a very normal house and definitely not the source of all those strange attacks and family massacres because their experiments got loose. After much puzzling and running around, we find Barry in an office filled with books, a bubbling tank, and various specimens. There's a missing page from the file he's looking at, but what's left points to all of this being an accident, at least as far as the staff are aware, since they're being left to get infected, go nuts, and die. Learning that, Barry then leaves Jill to continue investigating the mansion. We run into another Bravo team member, Richard Aiken, who was attacked by something huge and got poisoned. If we grab a serum from the medical room across the house and bring it to him in time, he'll live. At least just long enough for him to join us in the spooky, scary room he ran from, get confronted by a giant snake, and perish when I run out of the room because I had left my shotgun and grenade launcher behind and felt very under-equipped to deal with a boss fight. Sorry. Either way, it's around this point when I started looking at a guide because I just wasn't enjoying the experience enough to keep raw-dogging it. Not for all of the puzzles, but certainly when I felt like I was aimless. One of the more important documents we pick up is tucked away behind a secret door, a diary from someone called Trevor, the man who built all the mansion's secrets, puzzles, and strange mechanisms. And since he's the only other person besides Mr. Sir Umbrella Corp Spencer himself who knows about said secrets, he was done away with, and so was his wife and daughter. Well, that implies it was a nice clean death. No, they were experimented on, under Spencer's orders. The mother, Jessica, reacted badly and was disposed of in a stone coffin under the mansion, instead of just, I don't know, incineration like you would with biological hazards. The daughter, Lisa, responded so well to being experimented on that they proceeded to keep her for a following 28 years of being chained to a bed, fed intravenously, and carted around in a wheelchair if needed, because all the experimenting made her catatonic. She gained enhanced strength and powerful regenerative abilities, and after Umbrella attempted to implant a parasite in her, the act of her immune system attacking the thing seemed to reignite whatever was left of her mind. And what was left of her mind had an obsession with collecting people's face skin, because before she was bedridden she was just a terrified child who wanted her mother, but Jessica had already been killed, so what did Umbrella Corp do? They had someone impersonate Jessica, only for Lisa to eventually realize it was imposter, and in her deteriorated child mind she assumed that the woman had taken her mother's face, so of course she needed to return her mother's face to her by removing it from the imposter. Flash forward to after years and years of being experimented on, she now has superhuman strength and a healing factor on steroids, but now she's grown and cognizant enough to act on the face obsession, which made her a threat to all of the female staff. Umbrella kept her for another 7 years until she killed 3 female researchers in 1995, at which point the company executives ordered her destruction. This did not work. Even after watching her supposed corpse for 72 hours to make sure she was dead, wherever they dumped her body, she still recovered and scampered off into the surrounding wilderness, where she survived for the next few years. The fresh air, water, and trees must have been nice for her. Unfortunately, she will try to kill us later. Moving on. We wander out into the courtyard, get attacked by more dogs, and I play with some weather vanes to open a gate. As you do. It's at this point the broken radio we got from Richard starts working just enough for us to hear a warning from Barry to stay away from the forest because there's a monster with chains out there that's immune to bullets. So anyway, we continue into the spooky forest, retrieve a revolver from a gravestone puzzle, and further up the path we come across what seems like an abandoned cabin at first. It's covered in cobwebs, there's detritus everywhere, but the fireplace is lit, and when we pick up the crank we need for a water pump in the courtyard,
Oh, my dude, you just got pranked. Bet you didn't see that one coming, huh?
See, I'm confused by what happened here. Lisa knocked Jill out and just left her by the fire. Lisa would have had to move her from the bedroom to the fireplace. If she wanted to rip Jill's face off, she had ample opportunity to do it, so like, why? Needless to say, I get the hell out of there as quick as I can because fuck that. Navigating the courtyard, we make it to a manor, the residence, where more of Spencer's staff lived. It's here that we can eavesdrop on a conversation between 2 people, one voice easier to make out than the other. It's Barry, talking to someone about a deal they made and how it's not necessary to destroy STARS, Special Tactics and Rescue, the police unit that they all belong to. They all? Yeah, the other person Barry is talking to is Wesker. Wesker is the villain here. Wearing sunglasses at night should have been everyone's first clue. We learn later that Wesker was one of the scientists working for Umbrella, who then infiltrated STARS and roped Barry into helping him achieve his objectives by threatening Barry's family, because forcing someone's loyalty through fear always works out in the end. Point is, Wesker's goals are threefold. Lure in armed professionals to gather valuable combat data regarding the performance of Umbrella's experiments, otherwise known as BOWs, or bioorganic weapons. Bringing a police unit of limited size means the situation is somewhat controllable, at least more so than the National Guard getting involved. Retrieve embryonic samples of the specimens in the lab with the exclusion of something called a tyrant. He's ordered to get rid of that. Wipe the place clean by any means necessary, leaving no personnel or test subjects alive, and make it look like an accident. Sure. Entering the room reveals no one inside, but there is a ladder leading to a much more industrial-looking area. The long hall leads to a flooded circular room full of monster sharks. My nightmare. I failed to get through this area a couple of times, forcing me to slowly push those 3 boxes into place and contemplate my life choices. I do eventually reach the control room where Big Mama Shark tries to bust in and eat me a second time, but no luck for her. I get the room locked down in time and drain the area. The sharks obviously aren't happy about this, and while they can't move much, they are still clinging to life just enough to be dangerous. Of course, I assumed they would be and shot them before I approached. Why, on God's green bollocks, anyone at Umbrella thought it was a great idea to infect any sort of predatory animal with this mutagenic viral bullshit, I will never understand. I knew you were still alive, you piece of shit! We leave the moist ring of sadness with a key that will open up the rest of the residence, allowing us to create a specially tailored poison for Plant 42 by spraying it on the root system down in the aqua ring. What is Plant 42, you may ask? Oh, just a plant Umbrella infected with their fucked up virus. Because why not? Seems like a great idea, they'll make a killing with hentai fans. But yeah, Barry continues to come in clutch regardless of what his situation is. Through this fight, we acquire another key, this time the helmet key, which at this point I felt mocked by the absence of and was relieved to see. Time to open those last remaining doors. On our way out of the residence, we run into Wesker, who expresses concern about Barry sounding flaky, the sneaky bastard. He orders Jill to return to the mansion to see if she can open up the remaining doors, which shouldn't be an issue now that we have this last key. Oh, shit. You know, credit where it's due, the game warned me about Lisa, so that's what I was expecting to deal with. And then... The noise I made was not dignified. These are hunters, a successful product of Umbrella's constant fuckaboutism, blunt human-animal hybrid bioweapons that can learn commands and wreak havoc on a given location. The given location in this case being my goddamn face as I clear the rest of the mansion. Returning to the mansion proper is when the game felt less of a drag to me, and I attribute that largely to having a limited number of avenues to pursue, rather than running back and forth, back and fucking forth, managing an inventory overflowing with key items I wouldn't need just yet. After some more running around and an extremely frustrating statue puzzle with moving walls and far too many points where the camera changed position in such a small space, we find a hole in the ground. What kind of lesbian would I be if I didn't? Dropping into a short passageway, we find another key item hidden in a book, and a gravestone marked for George Trevor, along with his last written testimony. After dodging Spencer's men for days, he found himself trapped in this room with no way out, which really fucking sucks, because when you press a switch on the gravestone, it opens! Meaning if he'd just been able to think clearly, which he couldn't because he was suffering from exhaustion, thirst, hunger, and whatever nasty cocktail of drugs Umbrella gave him, he would have been able to escape. This man's only mistakes were being too creative and trusting the wrong guy. Descending the ladder lets us out into a very wet basement riddled with giant spiders. We get the power back on for the service elevator, head back up to the courtyard, restore power to the elevators out there, and raise the water level back up so we can enter a hidden passage way behind a waterfall we caused by lowering it in the first place, thereby making it impossible, simply impossible, to enter said hidden passage because the water was just too fucking much. This exceedingly slick hole brings us to what seems to be old mine tunnels, but they have puzzles too where an entire section of the tunnel rotates to let us pass, so like, fuck knows how George managed that. In these tunnels, Jill comes across Enrico Marini, captain of Bravo team. He's deeply suspicious, asking her if she's with anyone and warning her that there is a traitor within Stars, that Umbrella set up Stars to die here. He is then shot in the chest by an unseen assailant, and instead of checking or immediately running to see if the perpetrator can be caught, Jill fusses over Enrico as if that didn't just instantly kill him. We kill a giant spider, get a combat knife out of it to cut the webbing that blocks our way, and then I promptly yeet that otherwise useless chunk of steel into an item box never to be seen again. Barry arrives to join us in an elevator deeper in the dark, damp depths, and boy I wonder who could have been down here to shoot Enrico. At the bottom of the shaft, we hear a soft, raspy groan that definitely isn't Lisa, and Barry encourages Jill to investigate while he keeps the lift secure for an escape. Yeah, I'm sure he'll do that. Why aren't you out enjoying the woods? Avoiding Lisa, we make it back to Barry just in time for him to abandon Jill down here.
Prick.
Thankfully, that is not the only way out of here, and we avoid Lisa once again by darting through a locked door, only to walk into this fresh nightmare of dolls, doll parts, candles, and ambiguous viscera. On the other end of a wet tunnel full of snakes is an almost cozy little den with a bed, bookshelves, a mirror, and pictures. Pictures depicting a family, a man, a woman, and a young girl, the mother and daughter seeming particularly close. Oh, this is Lisa's room, isn't it? And there's a journal written by Lisa detailing her emotional turmoil over being separated from her mother, along with her mental deterioration and physical mutations thanks to Umbrella's testing. Her writing goes from full sentences to something disjointed, blunt, and simple. She just wants her mother. Her mother is in a stone box held shut by metal chains attached to rocks that she can't get open. This will be important later. Finding another ladder, we climb up and out into the old shed where we first encountered Lisa, neatly explaining how she comes and goes from the area. Finally in possession of 2 emblems that will open a gate beneath the mansion foyer, we descend through a stairwell and back into dark, glistening rock, eventually finding ourselves in a tomb. But not just any tomb. One where the edges of the room are a bottomless fucking chasm. Because why not? I just keep thinking about George and if he unknowingly designed the contraption that would hold his wife's remains after his client murdered them both. Anyway, we find Barry trying to open the coffin with no success. He fakes concern for all of 2 seconds before trying to pull his gun on Jill, but she pulls an Uno reverse and orders him to start talking. Which would be a great position to be in if Lisa didn't shuffle in looking more than a little peeved at our presence. We're given the option of returning Barry's gun to him, which determines if he survives or not. If you don't return it, you acquire one of the most powerful weapons in the game, but it only has 6 shots and there are no refills, so it's really better off in his hands. Although I had to do this twice because while I was trying to dodge Miss Ma'am Mommy issues, she took my existence personally and spanked me to death.
Spooky bitch!
I've never been so disrespected. I managed to open the coffin the second time around. Lisa takes her mother's skull and leaps into the abyss, Barry stays behind to secure the area, and Jill goes on ahead to another lift. We open a secret lift under a big fountain and descend to our new and more clinical hell in the Arklay laboratories. Zombies make a return as an enemy down here, mostly nerds in lab coats and medical scrubs. Obviously, a lot of sensitive documents can be found here as well, detailing the names of each creation Umbrella birthed and showing us a picture of those responsible. A man of many talents, I suppose. Unfortunately, it isn't just zombies we have to contend with down here, but also these horrifying fly-human hybrid monstrosities, because I guess they saw the Cronenberg movie and took it as a goddamn challenge. Now, there's a self-destruct mechanism down in the power room here, arguably the smartest decision Umbrella made given what they were merrily messing around with. Unfortunately, the power room has no fuel, but I unintentionally made my life easier by clearing the area before I picked up the volatile fuel necessary to restore power. If I hadn't and something had hit me, there was a non-zero chance for the fuel to explode and instantly kill me. Why on earth Umbrella would use such a dangerously temperamental fuel for its operations is baffling to me, but I guess they were already playing in traffic as far as safety and ethics went, so what's a little explosion between petri dishes? Power restored, we're able to use yet another elevator to descend even further into the labs, where Barry joins us in confronting Wesker.
Wesker!
Thank you, Barry.
Well, what do you know?
Oh, don't blame Barry for everything. I hear that his better half and 2 lovely daughters will be in danger if he doesn't do everything I tell him to.
Wesker, you're pathetic.
Well, you shouldn't worry too much, dear. You'll be free of all this anyway.
Why eliminate stars?
Believe it or not, that's Umbrella's intention.
You're just a slave of Umbrella.
Smart girl, but I think you misunderstand me. The things you mentioned are nothing. I'll burn all of them along with this entire laboratory. Barry, go up on the ground and wait there.
Barry?
You gotta love Barry. He must really be afraid of Umbrella.
You and Umbrella took his family, you bastard. Oh!
Umbrella? Well, I used some carrots and sticks to cow him, but it had nothing to do with Umbrella. I just used Barry for my personal interests.
I can't be the only one who thinks the dialogue exchange feels slightly mismatched, like they're responding to something that wasn't exactly said. It's weird. Anyway, Wesker shows us his ideal man, a towering, beclawed monster with bare teeth and a heart on the outside of its body called a tyrant. This is what he's going to portray Umbrella for, calling it magnificent. Okay. Barry returns to shoot Wesker before he can kill Jill, but Wesker isn't quite dead, so while they reconcile, he releases the tyrant.
Damn it!
Jill and Barry together. In hell.
You want a piece of me?
What? Premature.
No, Barry! You viral cultured freak.
What the fuck did you just say?
Unlike the snake boss, I was prepared this time and took it down with grenades. Somehow, Wesker crawled away without anyone noticing, so with nothing else left, Barry and Jill start to make their way out of there. God fucking damn it. I don't know if I could have done this before this moment, but I remembered the weird door with the locks I had to disengage using MO discs, and decided to finish that while this was going on. If there was a timer and I just got lucky, I have no idea, but opening that door reveals Chris in a detention cell. It turns out Wesker captured him at the very beginning and held him here the entire time. What about Rebecca Chambers? Like I said, doesn't exist in this version of the game. Who is that? Don't know her. With the boys collected, we can finally get the hell out of here, making it up to the helipad and launching flares so that Brad can swing down and get us. But not before the tyrant shows up for a rematch, only to get dog-walked the moment Jill gets her hands on a rocket launcher. Rest in pieces, you tumor with legs. And because Barry lived and Chris was rescued, I got one of the good endings. The mansion and its horrible, no good, very bad laboratory is destroyed, Jill, Chris, and Barry are flown off into the sunrise, and Jill finally gets to have a goddamn nap. I can't say I didn't enjoy this, but I do have criticisms, some pain points, namely the constant back and forth for keys and doors. The moments between story progression often felt like a slog to get through, and as I mentioned, the point where we return to the mansion proper is when I felt some of that friction smooth out. I can absolutely see why it had such a lasting effect on people, the atmosphere, the music, the monster designs, and the overall vibe of exploring this tricked out death house slash dark science facility. It's all great. Is the voice acting largely just kind of eh? Yeah, a little bit, but from what I've seen, it's not any worse than the original, and we've certainly improved since this. I do wish that instead of the hunters jumping us in the mansion, that we did get stalked around by Lisa, primarily because we cannot kill her, so she's an immovable threat until her boss fight, and calling it a fight is charitable, since, again, we can do exactly fuck all to her. At the same time, I can imagine that being frustrating if she caught you in a bad spot. I did appreciate that if you deviate from the path just a little bit, you can nix one of the boss fights before you even get to it, saving on ammunition and health items ahead of time. Overall, not a bad experience. It was nice to play one of these games myself for once, and I felt like playing the first one was the best way to go, even if it wasn't the original version. But you'll just have to forgive me for that. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below, whether it's a game you'd like to see me cover, what you thought about the one we just discussed, or to tell me about your pets. Special shout out to my patrons and YouTube members who are all very handsome people, and if you'd also like to be called a very handsome people, you can support the channel through Patreon or become a member here on YouTube. Either way gets your name in the credits. If you're into live streams, you can catch me every Wednesday on Twitch at 8 PM British time. I can also be found over on Blue Sky and TikTok when I remember to post on either of those. All that being said, don't forget to drink your water, take your medication, be kind to yourselves, and I will see you all next time.